Hey guys, it's Sam, and today's mini tutorial is on hair, specifically how I drew the hair in the picture of food that I did on Thursday. If you haven't seen that video, feel free to check it out. I'll put links in the description. So before I got into the whole how I fixed it and what I did in fixing it, I kind of wanted to talk about my mistakes first, because that would probably help you guys know what not to do. The initial mistakes actually started in the very beginning when I first was drawing the picture. The thing about Fu's hair is that she's kind of got these large curls, large kind of wavy curls, and the only real references that I looked at were pictures of her, which is not a good idea. When you want to look for references on something, you need to look at pictures, photographs, or real life if possible. And I did not do that, and I think that's where I got really messed up, because I did what I thought curly hair looked like, and that was wrong. I don't have enough experience drawing curly hair, so I am not capable of just doing it on the fly. So it looked kind of okay as a sketch because it's passable, there's not a lot of details, you don't have to think about it too hard, but as I started to color it, that's where the problems came out, because I couldn't follow my sketch. It's just the hair didn't work. And so when I added more lines and tried to fix it and darken things and change things up and add shading here and there, it's a mess. It didn't look like hair. I mean, the only reason it looks like hair is because it's on a head, and you just know that hair is on a head. And so it's the only reason it was passable. So a lot of the times that I was trying to fix it and reshape it a little bit, it wasn't working, and it pretty much was getting to the point of no matter how much more I would have tinkered with this, it wouldn't have turned out anything better. There's only so much tinkering you can do. It's not going to get any better. So my conclusion was pretty much to start over. And I know that's something that a lot of beginners avoid, and it's even something that I like to avoid, because I hate having to erase and start over. But the more experience you have with art, the more you realize it's not worth it to continue going with something that's just not working. And you take what you learned from this experience and you start over. You do something different the next time. So I started with a fresh slate. I took the layer of the hair, it's all flattened, I was working in one layer, and I copied it and I filled it completely with black. So it's the same exact outlines, it's just now black. And the reason I put it in black is for my values. I don't want to think about color, I don't want to mess with color, I just want to see the values. And that makes it so much simpler and so much easier, because you don't have a million other things to worry about. Now the next thing I'm doing is I'm taking a soft round brush and using just a slightly lighter gray, and kind of just doing what I kind of like the flow of curly hair. And at this point I was more comfortable with it because this was something that I've practiced doing this kind of style with hair before with just values, so it was something I was familiar with. So if you're starting with something new, going with something you're more familiar with is an okay thing to do. And of course I always recommend references. So I started out with the dark gray, and I gradually started to add more layers by decreasing the brush size while also going slightly lighter with the gray, and kind of just keeping it with those highlights, following the hair, kind of, keeping it curly and more realistic. I'm not thinking about the initial sketch. I don't even think I had it turned on at that point. I just wanted to try something different. I was just thinking, okay, let's just do some C and S curves and just something that's more waves, and not think about the actual curling up of the hair. I'm just thinking in terms of shapes. It's really helpful for when you're doing complicated hairstyles to think of things in shapes and very, very simple lines. C's, S's, and I's, I guess, would just be a straight line. And you just want to keep things as simple as possible, because hair can get really complicated and really messy. Another thing that you probably have noticed is that I'm not painting every single strand. I'm kind of giving an illusion of strands by having the gradual fade from dark to light. Painting every single strand does not look good. I used to do that, and it's not how hair appears really. Even when you look at it, that's not how hair looks. And think about viewing hair from a distance. You're not going to see every single strand. Even if you're standing right next to somebody and you're looking at their hair, you're not really seeing every strand unless you're really focusing on it. And it's not necessary to add those details. If you're someone who draws every strand, you know, I'm not attacking you or anything, but I do want to try just a suggestion of try doing less and see what happens. Play around with doing different styles and see how you feel about it. Because while hairstyles can be complicated, they don't have to be complicated, if that makes sense. And as my brush size is getting smaller, I'm also having some little random, just single strands kind of going out in the opposing direction or a significantly different direction than the rest of the hair, just to kind of give it a more fluffy, like, hair look, because not every strand is going to follow the majority of the strands. So it just gives it a little extra touch, detail sort of thing. The next thing I did was I made a new layer and I set it to overlay, and I just used straight black and white just to get different values. The black wasn't exactly necessary because I already had that dark black base, but yeah, just to get some stronger values going. The next thing I'm doing is getting the colors from the original hair because I did like using them, or did like those colors, and I'm making a gradient map. This is to have the colors of the gradient correspond with the values of the thing under the layers underneath. So I'm just playing around trying to see where I want the colors and where I want the values. The mistake I had with this was that I didn't have enough of the dark grays, so a lot of it was pretty flat in terms of the darker areas, but I go back later, which is included in this video, and just darken things up. But it's very nice for like quickly coloring things if you're working from values, to just use a gradient map or some overlay and color layers, stuff like that, to easily color your drawings. And just to keep the artwork that I did, I just set it to, I had to look soft lights to kind of keep that layer and just add a little bit of subtle extra texture that won't hinder the new artwork that I drew, just to kind of enhance it a bit. And then it was too bright for me, so I had to desaturate it to, you know, dull it down a little bit, just chill sort of thing. And at this point now, I am just fixing up the little strands of ends. I could have done a little bit of a better job, but meh. I'm also going in and darkening some areas and adding in some more darker solid strands to kind of keep it all together, because once you add like the color, it's totally fine and probably a really good idea to go back and just keep touching things up a little bit. You'll notice that I have a lot of areas where I just kept the straight black, or at this point the darkest brown, and not have all the lines connect with each other, and that's because there's going to be some things that are in shadow, and it wasn't necessary for me to draw them, or at least for this particular picture I didn't feel it was necessary to draw them, and just have it be the illusion of the depth. So you can see the highlights, the parts that are sticking out of the hair, the lighter parts of the hair, and that would just tell you, hey, this is hair, and it gets darker at this point. And then I did some value checking just to see how things were looking, and I did see that the colors in the hair were rather not great in contrast. So here I am adding a bit of extra dark brown to it, just to kind of help push those values a bit more. Again, this is all with a soft round brush, but you can use whatever brush you want. I recommend playing around, not doing any sort of serious drawings. Just draw like empty heads of, like, don't bother with faces or anything. Just draw like a circle for the head and then just work on hair. Like, go on DeviantArt or Google Images and just look for hair models. I don't even know what you would search for, but just search for like straight hair, curly hair, any sort of hair you want, and just start painting the hair. I personally recommend doing values first, just mostly focusing on values and not worrying about color, because the point is to learn how to draw the hair first, and if you add color, that's just a whole nother element to worry about and confuse you, and it would confuse me too. So it's just a recommendation that you just work black and white, don't worry about color, just try and get the shape and how you want to do the strands and all of that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much how I did the hair in this picture. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys. If you make anything from this tutorial, please link down below. I love seeing people's creations from my tutorials. Also, a big shout out and thank you to all of my lovely patrons over my Patreon page. I really appreciate all the support that you guys have given me, and it's what helps keep me going and keep creating all these fun videos and all this content for you guys. So feel free to check out my Patreon account if you haven't already and consider supporting me. If there are other tutorials you'd like to see me do, feel free to comment your suggestions down below. And thanks for watching! Bye!